All right, whenever you're ready, ma'am.
Good afternoon, school counselors from upstate, middle state, downstate, far and in between. Welcome to our workshop on fentanyl given by Nurse Smith. She was excellent last week in talking about, oh my goodness.
Edibles.
Edibles. Sorry about that. She was talking about edibles, and that was a very good presentation. Her name is Keisha Smith. She is a graduate of Syracuse University, Long Island University, where she studied nursing, and she works in a school. And she was given to us by Sharon Usher, who's one of our members on the Professional Development Board. Special shout out to our president-elect, Marjorie Miller, who is a middle school school counselor. And for those of you that don't know, we have our executive director, Dr. Rotunda. Not only was he a retired school counselor, but he also teaches, and he's our tech person. So I am Gail Reed Barnett. I am the Professional Development Chair of the New York State School Counselors Association. I am also not only a school counselor, but I work also as a mental health counselor. I just cannot sit down. I just have to tell the story. Kindly write down any comments or questions that you would like to ask in the chat box. So without further ado, I'm sorry, a big shout out to my class, Mercy College, Introduction to School Counseling Program, class 643. Glad to see everybody. And without further ado, take it away, Nurse Keisha Smith.
Hello, everyone. Are you guys able to see my PowerPoint? Let me know when you're able to see it.
There you go.
There you go. Oh, nice.
So, we're going to be talking about fentanyl use among school children in the United States. It's our introduction. Fentanyl is an opiate drug that's approved by FDA. It's a pain relief drug. The drug is estimated to be 50 times more potent than heroin or 100 times than morphine, which is also painkillers. In the United States, fentanyl is responsible for more than 70,000 deaths each year when overdosed. The origin of fentanyl, it first developed in 1959 as an IV anesthetic. It was introduced to the United States in 1960. It's manufactured legally in the United States. But between 2011 and 2018, fentanyl abuse increased significantly. There are a number of cases of trafficking, distributing fentanyl illegally. Some street names for fentanyl include Blondie, Apache, Cash, Tango, Dance Fever, King Ivory, Fancy, Great Bear, Jackpot, and Blues, among other names. Signs and symptoms of fentanyl use can include dizziness, withdrawal symptoms, and behavioral such as money issues related to purchasing of drugs. They'll become very irritated. They want a lot of money. Intense cravings for the fentanyl increases. Fentanyl also causes constipation, inability to move responsibly, slurred speech, and coordination. And the effects of fentanyl, when used as a prescription, like mentioned earlier, it's a painkiller. And once in the body, effects such as the nausea, relaxation, pupillary constriction, But when there's an overdose, a cyanosis can appear, which the person will appear blue. Respiratory failure, which becomes shallow and weak. There's a decrease in heart rate and blood pressure, and pupil constriction. The pupils become very pinpoint and small. Body becomes cold and clammy. There's and also can cause coma and worst scenario death. And similar drugs are like heroin, methadone, morphine, and fentanyl use among children. School children in New York abuse fentanyl as they experiment with painkillers. Toxicology reports show that the drugs such as oxycodone have enough fentanyl to kill. Overdose of the fentanyl among teens has increased in the last 3 years. During COVID, there has been a spike in the deaths resulting in fentanyl overdose. And it has attributed because on social media, drug dealers are no longer standing on the corners. They can get it off of selling it through the web. So they sell fake pills that have, potential to kill. I'll show pictures of that in a few. And this is just like a 12-month increase in drug overdose rates. And as you can see, fentanyl has the highest at 69% compared to the others. And these are some counterfeit pills and lookalikes. So now they have them colorful. So we have to be very mindful. And on the right-hand side, I have oxycodone, which is FDA approved. And these are the counterfeit. As you can see, there isn't, you cannot really distinguish it unless you look at this M here. And that's the counterfeit one. The M is a little bit bolder than the FDA approved oxy. And then Xanax as well, like they changed the color, but if they're selling it, they're gonna be like, wow, this is the real thing. And they're gonna take it. And Adderall is another one. FDA drugs are, the original ones are on the left-hand side. And as you can see on the right, these are the counterfeit. And then there are fake pills such as Percocet to be on the lookout for. Like I mentioned, Xanax, Valium, cocaine, and drugs to watch for that are mixed with it is marijuana and vape pens, like I mentioned as well, Adderall. And then laced fentanyl, marijuana, and vaping pens. There's new reports that have shown that teens are consuming fentanyl, laced marijuana in New York. Marijuana is preferred by drug dealers because it's a low cost and the side effects of laced cannabis can be fatal. And like I said again, it's easily accessible because now they sell them online. So children, they have easy access to this as well online. And other, illegal drugs, they change them into vaping liquid and they're being vaped among children. Okay, and what can be done in the case of a medical emergency? They have something which is called naloxone, also known as Narcan. It can be used immediately if you suspect if they're on any kind of drug overdose. It doesn't, it doesn't cause any significant harmful effects. It's designed for everyone. Overdose can happen anywhere. It's good for people of all ages, and also we know to call 911. And then how can school counselors help us? Counselors can educate parents about fentanyl, advise parents the use as a prescription drug to keep it away from children. Also, possibly drug monitoring programs that can be started in schools. Also, do peer counseling groups, education. And also, I'm gonna put it in the link. There's also like testing strips, fentanyl testing strips, and you can get access to can't stop kids from using drugs. So what they can be very mindful and test these drugs and see if it has fentanyl. I'll put up a little thing in the chat when I'm done. And it's what it seems. And then policies to reduce the use of fentanyl. They have SAFE, which is Save Americans from the Fentanyl Emergency Act. It was passed to prosecute the sale and use of fentanyl. The legislation is ensured to decrease the availability of illegal drugs to school children. An Department of Education can also, pair up to create awareness of the fentanyl use. And there's also campaigns such as One Pill Can Kill are helpful to share resources and information with parents and guardians. So to conclude with the overall, social media is the leading source of information for fentanyl use in the United States for children through these social media channels. The effects of fentanyl can be fatal when abused. School councils can continue to create awareness of the effectiveness of the drug to prevent its abuse. And the U.S. Department of Education can partner with schools, parents, and guardians to create more awareness. And children should understand whether it's legal or fake. It can kill them. So I'm gonna put in the chat right now. You can test for the fentanyl and also get. It can also help with Narcan. Like I know as a school nurse, we have Narcan here on board. So if we suspect if anyone has consumed fentanyl or anything, we can use the Narcan, and it's nasal. So you just spray it in each nostril, and that would help with the overdose. And anyone have any questions?
I have one question. Thank you, Nurse Smith, for this wonderful information. I have two questions. One, are there signs that school councils can put in their office regarding using fentanyl?
We can. There are posters like I'm putting in the chat. It's like something from New York State Community Overdose Prevention Education.
Okay.
And it does have information.
Okay. And the second question is, does someone need to be trained on how to use Narcan?
No. And again, the information I'm giving in the chat right now for prevention, it shows like little easy steps. Also for the strips, it also gives information on how to use the testing strips for fentanyl, which we can also teach the children.
Can I just ask a quick question about that, about the Narcan? Because I understood, I heard on the news that they said that they were gonna sell it now, like over the counter.
You can, I'm not sure if they, if it can be sold over the counter, but I know that there are programs, like I put in the chat, the New York State like Community Overdose Prevention Education Program. They have where you can obtain the Narcan. They'll give you resources on how.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think I heard that within the next few months it's going to be over the counter, but they weren't sure of the pricing or where and such like that.
But I also know they're supposed to be giving it to the high schools. I didn't hear anything about middle school, but I understand they want to distribute it in high schools.
Yeah, and that's what I've also followed up on too. Like I said, the Community Overdose Protection Prevention Education, the link that I put in, and just look there too, and they'll give you some information.
I actually attended I believe it was last year online, a Nassau BOCES course on Narcan, and the head of the course actually drove the Narcan pen to my house. Like she gave me like an envelope with all the information that, and the pen. And so, I mean, thank gosh, I haven't had to use it, but it's just good to have.
Is it true?
It's nasal.
Yeah.
Right.
Nasal,
I mean, spray, sorry.
No, is it true that most fentanyl use, the danger is that it's mixed with other drugs, so somebody will think they're buying marijuana or think they're buying an oxypill or something like that, and it's mixed with fentanyl, and that's where a lot of the overdoses come from.
Yes, and also vaping, they'll sabotage, and they'll put like they'll put it into liquid form, fentanyl as well, so that they're starting to vape it as well, and they don't know the severities of that.
So the kids think they're just fooling around with pills, but they're deadly. Yeah.
And then the dealers out here, they're making the pills even more colorful and attractive. So yeah. So that's why I think the test strips are very, it's very good to have.
So the test strips are used to see if a substance has fentanyl in it?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Cool.
Lisa had a good question in the chat. If you administer Narcan for a mistaken overdose, can the Narcan damage the person?
No, no,
Okay, cool. So there's really no risk.
no, it's not.
Beautiful.
I don't know if anybody saw the Lifetime movie, but a year or two ago, they came out with a movie called Imperfect High, and it was a group of students, about 4 students. One in particular, they got a prescription. 2 of them had one for Xanax. And so obviously when it was a prescription, it was safe Xanax, prescribed by the doctor, overseen. But then they started overdosing on it and using too much. And then they wound up getting stashes off the street from friends. And at the end, I mean, one of them has seizures and almost dies because it was laced with, fentanyl. And the other one almost dies from that. And I mean, it was a touching movie. It was the first time I had ever heard that Xanax was being laced, like any benzo was being laced with, fentanyl. I hadn't been aware of it.
Yeah, that's why, on the slide, I just I noted a whole bunch of other drugs like Valium, Xanax, because these are prescription drugs. So the dealers are making these counterfeit. So that's why it's even a bigger issue, because it's they get these drugs, they're thinking that, it's prescribed, but they're not prescribed medications.
I have a silly question. I don't understand why drug dealers would lace their product with something that's going to kill their customers. It seems kind of counterproductive.
Yeah.
Ray has
Bob,
his
that's a
hand up.
good question. I often ask that question when I'm doing groups. And I said, you're buying from, drug dealers, whatever you're buying. And it's laced with either fentanyl or cocaine, because we do urine tests. And I don't understand, what is it? And most of them come back because of the high. They like the way it feels.
Ray has his hand up.
Right?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Thanks, Gail. I had a question. I just heard, I believe it was last week on the news, that there's this horse tranquilizer that they're using, and it's when you use the Narcan, it doesn't do anything to, stop the high on that. And it's become, that's another thing like fentanyl that's deadly, and it actually, it eats the tissue of the person if you inject it into a human. And they're lacing things with that. Have you heard anything on that?
No, that's a new one, but I could always ask.
Nisha, have you?
No, I haven't.
I think I heard the same news story, but that's all I heard.
Yeah, haven't.
Wow.
Yeah, it's scary. I'm trying to put my hand down here too. I don't know how to do that on the phone.
Oh.
Leslie's got her hand up. Unmute.
Thanks. I was just wondering if you're talking about ketamine, because ketamine is a horse tranquilizer, and I think that might be the story. Pretty scary.
I think that sounds right. Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. And they said that they're out. It used to be you could just get it in the local animal supply places. And now they're outlawing it, but people are importing it like Chinese brands or something.
Wow.
That's why we as school counselors have to be so vigilant, because our kids are getting into all kinds of stuff.
And like we said, and they're vaping as well. So the vaping mixed with the marijuana and the fentanyl, so it's and then they, the vapes, they also come in pens and, look like markers and stuff. So it's really hard.
The scary part too is a lot of those things aren't regulated. It's not like cigarettes, right? Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. They make sure that they're tracking all that. You'll see the label, the little stamp in the bottom of it. But this stuff, it's really not regulated. So you have no idea, what you're getting. It's like Russian roulette. It could be anything. It's really scary. And when you're young, you don't think things through, right? it seems like a good idea. I'm only getting high, I'll be okay with this. And
Mhm.
An
there's
experiment.
just so many other consequences that you really don't take into account.
Christy found the story about, I'm gonna put it up on the screen, hang on. She put the link in the chat. But it's, the story that was in the Times about an animal.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, so it's in the chat. You'll get a copy of the saved chats when I send out the other email.
Yeah, I was just looking it up also, and they say it goes by like a street name of Trank.
Wow.
Yeah, they have so many different names.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that street name. But it's also frightening because so many of our kids, Ray and I are middle school, and they're so trusting. Why would somebody that says they're my friend give me something that would harm me? And that I cannot tell you how many times I hear that, unfortunately. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. How do you tell them, a friend wouldn't do that? You have to use all your tools to just have that conversation.
Or maybe the dealer doesn't know what is in his product.
You make a very good point, Gail, because many times what they do is they send out the younger kids who, even if they're caught, don't go to jail.
Mhm.
So they don't know what they've been given to go sell. So you make a very good point with that.
I think maybe we need to educate the dealers, but on a positive note, what are the chances, rules, and regulations on students coming to school smelling or smoking marijuana? Have they changed those regulations? Or what does the principal say if a kid comes in high? What do you do? Anyone?
Anyone?
In most cases, could be scenarios of a child comes in high. If it's not a medical emergency, I see that, they call the parents and talk to the parents and they go home. And
Do the parents have to come pick them up?
yes.
Yes.
And I
So some of
usually
the,
bring them to the nurse too, just to make sure that the nurse will check them out and check their vitals. And
Yeah,
it's not a medical
that's
emergency.
exactly what we do. We bring them to the nurse, and they check their heart rate, and other vitals, and they actually stay in the nurse's office until the parents come.
and also
Go ahead.
and also if you if we notice that a student smells of marijuana, we do remove them from the class. We do notify our dean as well, and then we notify our medical room to send them there so they can look at them, and then definitely have the parents come and pick them up.
So they don't get in trouble unless they're in possession.
Right.
Okay, so if they're in possession of anything, alcohol, marijuana, pills, whatever, then they get into the disciplinary system.
Yes.
But if they're just high or smelling bad,
Their parents have to pick them up.
becomes a medical issue. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sharon, thank you for the answer, but I got one. Suppose a parent coming high and pick up the child.
That
and they've
sounds
done
like
that.
Yeah, I know, like scratching my head. Yeah, we've done that too.
That actually happened to my sister. She was a school psychologist before becoming a professor in, I won't say it, but it was a Long Island district in Suffolk County, and drug use was rampant. She was in a junior high school, and it turns out that the mother came in to pick up her child from middle school, junior high, and the mother was completely high or stoned, and they had to make a CPS call. And I remember my sister trying to help out a lot, like financially, with clothes, because it was a very, it was a lower SES district, it was very poor, but it was very heartbreaking, for that for that whole family and for my sister. I remember she finally became a professor because it like broke her heart and crushed her spirit so much. And by the way, the administrators were not also supportive of like the counselors and psychologists, and that makes a difference too if they're like helping and supportive. They were very like into penalizing only and not really educating. So the kid, the parent, the whole, it's just terrible when that happens, when it's a familial like issue, I think.
Has anyone called ACS on a
Yeah.
parent that might be high or child? I mean, would you call, that's one of those questions I'm gonna have to research. If the child is high, the parent comes up and pick up the child, the parent's supposed to be responsible, and the child is high, would that be something to call ACS? I mean, support.
Can I
unless
answer
someone-
that for a minute?
Yes. Ms.
My
Barbara.
experience is that we did have a student that was high and he was EMS'd. We could not get in touch with mom, who he lives with. And we called dad, and dad made it to the hospital. Now this student, this was his 13th birthday.
Mm.
ACS did nothing. They
Wow.
opened the case and then they sent me an email a couple of weeks later that said it was unfounded. So I said, I'm sorry, how did you unfound? He was high. He was EMS. He went to the hospital. There was medical tests done. What was not founded? I was confused.
I agree with Mario, though. I'd call
Yeah.
and put it in CPS's or ACS's lap to make the decision, because they keep track of which households get calls. And maybe the first time it's unfounded, but maybe after that it's not. Then you get into like, did the parent drive there high to pick up their kid? And it's going to drive home drunk or
Right.
high or whatever. That's another law. I forget the name of it. Somebody.
But this was a family that is known to ACS. They've had multiple cases open. And granted that it may have been for different reasons. If you're a 13-year-old who hasn't been 13 for 24 hours yet, is high, I don't see how is that not something that you don't follow through when we've reported poor attendance, no parent involvement. Now this kid is, so you see, these are why I really think that our kids don't fall through the cracks. They're shoved through them because there's a scream for help here, and multiple times that outreach has been done. And this is, and he was high and it was just a gateway drug.
Now, just
What's to happen
clarify,
tomorrow?
Go ahead, Ray.
Are we talking about the student being drunk or high, or the parent when they come into the building to pick them up because we're sending them home?
Well, I'm talking about the student because they're saying if you're
Okay.
reporting it to the state.
No, because I was taking it, luckily I haven't had to deal with it in the school where I'm working, but I remember when I interned years ago, we had a situation that we called to have a student picked up and they arrived drunk, like high is difficult to tell, but when you've got it on your breath and, you're acting and slurring your words. And what the administrator in that district decided to do is they called the police and, because they were not going to release the child to the legal guardian because
what we
they were
did.
not in the state to do it. So we called the police and, then it got turned over. Child Protective got involved, but it was the adult, not the child, that we were concerned about.
Right,
Michelle,
that happened, that happened with us as well. The child reeked of marijuana, his coat reeked of it, but when he took the coat off, and his eyes were fine, when we called the parents to come in, they like floated in. And I called not only ACS because of other issues with that child, but we did we did call the precinct, and they came and said, the parents are here, please come. And it was very sad. It was just very sad. The ending was, it did not end well. That's all I'm going to say. It did not end well at all, unfortunately, but the child is where the child should be and safe. So yeah, sometimes you have to call both.
Right.
Right.
I also had that happen too, because when the parent came, she actually had young kids with her. So, and she said that she drove in, so we called the police as well, so she wouldn't get
Crazy.
behind the wheel with the little kids being high.
Mm.
My
And
sister's
that's-
district had that also, where the mom picked up a kid wasn't high, the student wasn't high, but when the mother came to get the child, it was very clear she was under the influence of alcohol, like reeked of it, was acting, inebriated, and they called DSS or CPS, and they took the case, and it was very sad. What happened was the student wound up living with the grandmother, which was a nice bond and a nice connection. And then the grandmother wound up getting sick and passing away. And I remember my sister trying to help with the funeral, and like, where was this kid going to go now? Who was going to take the child? It's so, I mean, I was happy, obviously DSS, CPS, they stepped in, but sometimes they don't. I mean, that's why it's been all over the news. They just had a study where they said over 700 some children were covered up by CPS, and like they tried to hide that there were all these cases that should have been founded that were unfounded. There was like a News 12 on Long Island, a report about that, especially because of Thomas Valva and Anthony Valva and what happened. I was like, I know that's not drug, like that's a whole different thing, but like, that's another situations where you call in a case and it's pretty clear it's founded when teachers are calling and reporting and different things, and it's not founded. Like, I don't know, understaffed. I mean, I don't know why, but
Yeah, I don't think we've heard the rest of the story on the Thomas case, the Thomas Velva case. I don't think we heard the rest of that story. It's going to be in court for quite a while.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And laws changing too because of it. Like the CPS, like I think different laws, we're going to see changes with DSS and CPS, and I think.
Yeah.
But
How long ago did that happen? I'm sorry.
Ooh,
Oh.
yeah, couple years.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because,
the little boy died a couple years ago, but
oof.
the father and stepmother were just convicted of murder within the last.
Mm.
The stepmom was a few weeks ago, and dad was a couple months ago. He's already in jail.
Was that the one that was a police officer?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
he was
okay.
a police, and I think she was in the nursing or something.
Something, yeah. But yeah.
But
Happened to be-
my point is with when a parent is picking up a child and they're intoxicated or drunk, to me, it's not even really the CPS side, it's the law enforcement side, because you're releasing a minor to somebody who's not in a state, especially if they're driving. It's one thing if they're taking a bus, but on Long Island, most people are driving, and I can't rightfully let somebody get into a car knowing that they're not in the state to be driving.
No, that's a cop thing. That's easy.
Mm.
Any other questions about fentanyl? We got a little sidetracked, but that's okay. We don't get together that often. Now, the message that I'm getting, and I've been around long enough to have gone through a couple of different phases of drug abuse and drug abuse counseling, and different methods of everything from cope, remember, or not cope, but the cops used to come in school and talk to the kids, the sheriffs and the cope officers and this and that, and some of it works and some of it doesn't, and it's really hard to deal with, but there's always the next thing, and I think we're in the next thing right now, and I think we react in the way we react because we're good counselors. Mario asked a good question. What's the most common way students gain access to the drug?
Online now as well.
Say it again.
Online, because like I stated, like during COVID, they got very smart and they learned how to do it online, how to purchase.
Great. Amazon. I'm sorry. Probably.
Lisa has a question for Nurse Smith. If you could talk a little bit more about the symptoms of an overdose
Okay.
as
Good
opposed
idea.
to other medical emergencies. What would be the difference?
Again, do they have constricted pupils? That's the main indicator. It's a constricted pupil. It's pinpoint. It's like a little dot. It's not like dilated. Like again, they have respiratory failure, which they have shallow breathing, clammy skin. They also can become blue, cyanotic. Yeah. So those are the signs. Low blood pressure as well.
So I guess a medical staff would know that, but we as counselors, what would we be looking for? The shallow breath?
Yes, the clammy skin. Also check their pulse. If it's a decreased pulse, you just touch their hand and yeah.
And it's different than an asthma attack, because I guess you're wheezing when you're doing an asthma attack.
Yes, you're using accessory muscles.
And I guess the $1 million question is, does every school have a school nurse?
Unfortunately, no. And unfortunately, they don't have, a lot of them don't have Narcan on board as well.
Then I have what? I'm sorry.
Narcan.
Okay.
Yeah, we have Narcans.
But every school should have that emergency kit?
Yes, they should. They should, but if they don't have a school nurse to that, yeah. Most school clinics have a school nurse, so they have the Narcan. But if they don't,
I see a good question in the chat. Is what's the difference between an edible overdose and a fentanyl opioid overdose?
Well, are they different?
Yeah, how are they different from?
How are they different? Again, like I said, the main indicator, like we have phones. Look at their pupil. That's the pupils. That's the #1 indicator to
Look in
tell
their
if
eyes.
they have, yes. Look at the pupils. Take your phone, the light on it, and look at the pupils.
The opioids would be like a really tiny pupil, and
Yes.
in marijuana is going to be bigger.
It'll be dilated, exactly.
Dilated. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
That's the first thing I check when they suspect. I automatically get the light and I'm looking at the pupils.
Wow.
And then, also the vital signs. Because a lot of these overdose symptoms, again, like they are similar. So yeah.
Yeah, because they ain't going to answer your questions. They're not going to. What'd you take? How'd you do that? How'd this happen? You can ask questions all day. They're not going to answer them.
Yeah.
What's
If
the
they
time frame we're looking at? In
Reacting?
once they've overdosed and you're looking at some type of intervention, what's the time frame that we're looking at?
Just immediate help, and then I guess if they in respiratory distress, CPR until EMS comes if there's no Narcan. But once you suspect it, like I said, even if it's not an overdose with the opioid, you can use the Narcan. It's not gonna
Hurt anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you suspect an opioid overdose, you should or overdose,
Yeah,
you should do
you can
Narcan right away.
Yes.
Okay.
And 911.
And 911.
I think you
Left
got to do it simultaneously. You do Narcan and you got the phone in the other hand calling 911.
Yes,
Do it together.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
I guess it's also something that you are saying to the 911 operator that you
Yeah.
suspect it's an
Suspect.
overdose.
Mhm.
Yep.
All right, I only asked that, and maybe it might because I'm asthmatic, but I know if I have an allergic reaction, I know that I always tell people if I have an allergic reaction, please request a paramedic because they can inject, whereas an EMT cannot.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
That's true.
So is that something? Is it the same situation if we suspect an overdose, or both
Doesn't matter,
EMT
as
and
long as-
paramedic?
Yep, just call, yeah. And they'll-
But I'm saying both can do the same intervention, both EMT and paramedic?
No, in that case, regardless, they're gonna send them to the nearest hospital and try to keep them stable as best as possible. And most likely they do have the Narcan.
Wait, I'm a
And
little
But
confused
it's
because
nasal.
oh, Barbara, I'm like you, like I'm a severe asthmatic, and maybe maybe I'm not understanding this correctly, but with the EpiPen, we were all trained in the middle school I was at, like where everybody could use it. And it was like a good Samaritan thing. Like if you were a teacher and someone had anaphylaxis, went into anaphylactic shock, they could we were all taught how to administer the EpiPen into the thigh, where it's supposed to go in the muscle. So couldn't a paramedic versus couldn't anybody do that?
But I think what Barbara's is because you believe in that it's injected. No, it's just a nasal spray. You spray it in the nose, so anyone can administer it.
Okay.
Yes, it's just like if you had like a Flonase bottle and you just take it's shaped just like a Flonase bottle, and you squirt it in your nose.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So anyone can help, and sustain them for the time being.
You don't have any samples in your office, do you?
I can get one so you guys can look at it.
Yes.
So are we gonna have these in school? Is that what we're saying? We're gonna have Narcan available in school?
I would say according to who's it has been presented to have Narcan in high schools. I cannot say that they talk about the whole state, but where I heard it was in the city. But that doesn't mean it's not going to all schools. I don't know who's in charge, who's in charge of doing that.
Any awareness from other people on the call in the rest of the state? Is there Narcan in the nurse's office? Can anyone respond? Okay. Lisa asked a good question. If it's a fentanyl overdose, is there a risk to do rescue breathing for the person administering the rescue breathing? Oh, I see.
Giving them, I guess, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
So do you have any danger of getting the fentanyl in your system? Is that, I think that's kind of what, okay. I think there's a lot of mystery around fentanyl too, and a lot of misinformation. You hear like, the cop pulled somebody over and they had some pills and they got the bag of pills and the cop overdosed because he touched a pill. I think that's like urban legend stuff. I'm not sure that really happens, but you hear that kind of misinformation every now and then.
I did hear a little piece, and that is a myth. So yes, it is a myth, Bob, what you said, that they said, oh, mouth to mouth. No, it's because they consumed it, either the edible, they consumed it, it's a myth. You can do mouth to mouth.
Okay.
And this is what Narcan, what it,
It looks like it looks
yeah.
just like a nasal spray.
Oh, okay. I see it.
Okay, and it's very simple. You take it, it's this little red, and you squirt it in one nostril, squirt it in the other nostril. Okay.
Oh, that's easy.
Yes.
You use all of it, or just when the person, you got to use all of it, right? You cannot
Yeah,
use it
it's
for
a
somebody else.
one
Oh, it's
time.
one, right? Okay.
One time use.
Heard that if you administer Narcan in one nostril, you should wait to see the reaction before spraying it in the other.
Yes.
Is this true?
Yes.
Oh,
and if
okay.
you forget, it also has the little standby. It's right there.
And what happens to them
Yeah.
after they get this? Like,
They
what
get a-
kind
Gives them
of,
a good kick, and they really they can be combative.
Mm.
That's just like TV then. Their reaction is just like it's imitated on TV.
Yes, they become
Okay.
combative. Like they're just because it gives them a really good. It's kind of like an epi, and it gives you that big, yeah.
Wait, they're not combative on TV. They just come up with taking a deep breath.
Listen,
Okay.
they don't shut up. They can be.
So is it anyway, Nurse Smith, counselors, that maybe we can do for each school, have a session, have someone come in and demonstrate? If you haven't done it already, that's something that you can think about doing when you do your next auditorium speech. Have someone come in and talk. I know our president-elect Marjorie Miller said the police came in to talk about fentanyl, and there was middle school, and Marjorie, I mean, she felt it was a joke.
Yeah, it wasn't, it didn't give the information that the students needed to be aware of what was going on, who was selling, what were they selling, what was their connection to this person, why were they interested in trying these drugs. Things, again, you know, you're talking about students who are at a developmental stage where impulse control like is their life, and making proper decisions is something that they need to be taught. It doesn't come instantly, you know. They don't understand consequences of their actions, and this was what I was looking for, you know, from our precinct. And it turned into, you know, like a Saturday Night Live skit, and it was just very upsetting for me, especially because it was my 8th graders. They're on their way to high school, and everything was a joke, and it's not a joke. And you have to be aware of these things, even if you're only 14.
So, but I think that also it for us in being in our school system, that we have a lot of restrictions as to what we present to our students with or without parental consent. And our populations also vary from one school to another. Now, I'm in a District 75 school, and most of my kids have emotional disability. And these kids may be very much aware of street knowledge, and they're street smart, as opposed to maybe a student in a more affluent neighborhood, or a school that has more parent involvement in it. And not saying that it doesn't happen in one place more than another, but I'm saying that the knowledge of the kids and the response that the kids have are very different to the presentations that are presented. And then anything that's presented to them also has to be appropriate,
Right.
you know, I guess, to their development and age, and
Yeah.
running.
And you know, our school is has always been a Title I school in Queens, and our students are way below poverty line. I was looking for more direction for them, and it really just was not what not what I thought it would be. So
Yeah,
what was your expectation of that presentation then?
like I said, you know, I was looking for absolutely the precinct to connect to our students in a way that they were building trust and connections, to the point where you start with that and then go into to other things that is going around the neighborhood. They, you know, when you say street smart, they think they're street smart, but they still get involved in things they shouldn't get involved in. So,
When I say street smart, I don't mean that they don't get involved with the things they're not supposed to.
right,
I'm saying they're street smart because they know everything that's going on, who's selling, who's
oh
rapping,
yeah,
who's this, who's that.
exactly.
They're
And
aware of their of gang affiliations. They're aware
right,
of
right,
all of that. That's what I'm saying in terms
right.
of street smarts. But by the same token, I also think that it's an unrealistic expectation to have officers come in and make a connection in one day with kids, especially if you're in a Title I school,
Mhm.
where those
Right.
relationships between the students and people in uniform, authority
Yeah.
figures,
Yeah,
they may have had a lot of negative
absolutely.
interactions already.
I agree with you completely. And what you're saying, interestingly enough, is exactly what I said to my principal when she told me that they were coming in.
Mm.
And I said, I don't know how that's going to play out. But I don't think it's going to go well. Oh,
just-
yeah. No, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. Okay. Yeah,
I just
there's
put a-
just so
I just-
much,
Yeah.
as well, you know, especially in D75, you know, there's just so much you can say, and they either agree, there's either an agreement, a discussion, or nothing at all.
Real quick before we go, Bob, give me a second. Chad, if I pronounce it correctly, has New York State provided any guidance or programming to addressing the importance of identifying fentanyl?
I
Does
just put a
anyone know
link.
the answer to that question?
Yeah, I just put a link in the
Okay,
in
excellent.
the chat, and I'll show you the website. Department of
don't-
Health. Department of Health's got a ton of stuff, including
Okay.
a whole thing on fentanyl and stuff. So that'll get you there.
And Doreen also had a comment.
Where'd you go?
I work in special needs school with multiple handicapped students. This has not been mentioned about prevention nor intervention. Who should be held responsible to get this information out? Is it the council's responsibility? Could it be the council's responsibility?
I think it's like all hands on deck. It's medical, it's counseling, it's administrative, you know.
It's physical
not-
education teachers as
Oh,
part
yeah,
of
Yeah, I
health
was gonna mention
education.
it, yeah.
Of the health teachers and such. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be the whole support system.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it takes the whole support system to support a child.
True. What I don't want to happen, and I pray that never happens, is that we lose a child and then here's all this information is going to pour into the school.
Yep. In money for programs.
And money for programs. I mean, we're trying to be preventive. We're trying to be proactive. So I would just say to counselors, just be very vigilant. Know your children. You know the environment where they live. Yeah, just be aware of what's going on in your surroundings when you're dealing with your students.
I
Oh,
mean,
got five.
I would take it a step further, not only with our kids, but also teach our kids how to respond if someone in their circle is in the same predicament.
That's good.
I agree. I definitely agree, but we have to educate them first. And that's by bringing in the experts. We don't necessarily need police officers. I understand what you're saying about the whole uniform piece, but we do need someone, you know, from like Nurse Smith, from a medical staff to come in and talk to young people about what it does and what it can do. So, you know, that person might be saving not only the youngster's life, very well could be saving their parents' life. You know, it is almost 5 o'clock a minute. the Professional Development Committee thanks each and every one of you for attending. Each one teach one. Please let other councils that know about what we've been doing thus far. I see Michael Gardner was on here. He's also one of our committee members. As I said before, Sharon Usher is one of our committee members. There's a list there. And stay tuned for our next webinar, which will be Counselor Burnout, April 25th from 4 to 5 p.m. And then we have some others coming up, Principals and School Counselor Series, April 26th. I can't see the dates, Bob, but I think they're on there.
May 17th,
May 17th.
May 10 and May 17th. Yeah, we got some other stuff in the development stage too. So stay tuned.
Yep, stay tuned. Again, thank you, everyone. Class 643. I'll see you in 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank
Have
you.
a happy Passover.
Thank you, Kanisha.
Happy spring break and happy
Oh, yeah.
Easter and
Spring
happy
break.
Ramadan. I think I got everybody, right? Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Have a good, thank you, Nurse Smith.
You're welcome. Have a good one, everyone.
Thank
Okay.
you, you as well.
I'll see you guys in almost a
Couple
week.
weeks.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll get the PowerPoint and the link to the recording out, as well as certificates of attendance for y'all who came today.
Bob, real quick, if I wanted to show this video, everyone will see us on here. There's no way I can show the video without everybody on here. That's something we could talk about later.
Yeah, when you show the video, all you see is the slides that were up.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah. Okay.
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 Thank
Cool.